Okay, now that we continue adding value, we're gonna go a little bit. Notice that I changed my brush to a big mop. I can carry a lot of paint and put a lot of paint on the paper. Even though the paper is now completely dry, I still can hold a lot of water and paint on a mop. And with the advantage that I can't create some texture with my brush. Notice that I'm doing some pressure with, I'm really pushing down paint on my paper. I want it to settle quite well. As much as possible. And what I'm gonna do now is change brush to a round, and I'm gonna create the illusion of sand, of fog. See, I'm adding water away from the paint, and I gently move my brush that has mostly water on it. I'm not adding paint at this moment, and I can just go and soften. And you already can see it. You're creating this illusion of fog. It's always a little bit foggy on certain times in the beach. And there you are. I hope it feels pleasant to you. I actually like it, how this is going. And I can come back here. Again, you can always be adding paint to your satisfaction. Remember, I'll be talking about that and repeating this forever, to say the least, that is your painting and is your interpretation of what you see, and there are no limits. If you are going to submit your painting for a show, for a juried show, you might want to consider respecting the rules and paint in a more conventional way. However, if you're painting for your own entertainment, if you're painting for your pleasure, personal pleasure, then you have absolutely and complete artistic freedom to work your colors and work your painting the way you feel comfortable, and be happy about your final result. sure you keep the horizon, keep some fog, add some mystery. Then we go back to our sea and deepen this value a little more. Notice that I'm still using my big mob just because I want to cover as much terrain as possible. Now I'm changing brushes again, and I'm gonna be working down to the beach. I'm not looking for perfection. On the contrary, I wanted this to feel natural. Oops, I had a bleeding. Bleeding in a watercolor happens, and the best thing to do is wait. You just dry out whatever bleeding you're having and wait a bit until you can add color. This is a bit of cobalt violet that I'm adding to this area where I want to create the illusion that the sand is wet. You can use some blue to have the same effect, but I think my particular taste, I think Cobalt Blue gives this feeling better. So I'm moving this, whoops, very quickly. I don't want to cover everything. So remember, a beach is it's usually very rough. And if I think there is not enough texture, I can always come back with a bit of salt and put in this area. It's gonna dry interesting. You just be careful because sometimes it's fascinating to put salt on your painting and eventually you have not only a painting, you have lunch. You could eat your paper because it's very tempered. Of course, please do not eat your painting. I'm just joking. Even though watercolors are not supposed to be as toxic as other medium like hot oils, you still should not eat. And even if possible, work with a glove. If you're doing a lot of painting during the day, I suggest you use gloves because you ended up touching a bit too much on your painting. And I'm just making sure my horizon lines are still here. And for that, I don't need a scrub brush. I just gently use a paper towel to correct any kind of thing that may not be pleasing to me. And I'm gonna add a tiny bit of, a little bit, very, very, very tiny amount of a gray kind of mix, just to create some interest here, as if I have clouds on my sky. And they are very gentle. They need to be very gentle because of the time of the day. And those are also elements, clouds in early sky, mist. You just have to be careful not to overdo it because, again, watercolor requires patience and a bit of self-control, because you do something here, oh, look at that, I love it, and then you decided to do more of it, and suddenly you have too many of them, and things move more difficult to correct. I'm gonna add a little touches of this is still wet, so what I'm creating the illusion here is that we have some waves very gently hitting the beach. And if you add too much, you can always move a little. And you don't really need too much to create an impression of movement in water. It's almost like your brain recognizes it without details. And that's what happened with most of very, very famous watercolorists. They have to actually paint very little. And even though they are putting not that much paint on the paper, you can still recognize what is there. Going back to Sepia and adding the pier. And the pier needs to be darker. And then we can use this excess paint here to create some shadows. I continue adding values. I continue using Sepia. Because when the sun is rising, you're gonna have this contrast, that is a very dark beach in relation to the sky. All right, and I am going to remove with rubber cement. I'm gonna remove the masking from here and from the water. And I'm gonna do that off camera because it really shakes the table. So